What's up, ladies and gents? Drinking again some Venetian Reserve black coffee from Kroger. This one's a little cool. I don't really mind that. Very velvety, very strong, incredibly dark. But now to business, despite the fact that the coffee is very good. I gotta go on and get to business here. Don't have a whole lot of time today. Really packed schedule. Got a job interview at 1:30. Got my actual job at 4 o'clock. So I got a lot of stuff to do. Gotta prep for all this stuff. Gotta go to town, print off a resume, such like that. But I wanted to go ahead and attempt to do a review of a movie I just recently watched. Oh, goodness. What are you going to do? But I'm going to leave it, to be perfectly honest. I don't really want to refilm this video. So, I recently watched the next movie in the Summer of Slash series, as determined by my randomizer slash different other means. And it was The Redeemer, Son of Satan from 1978, also known as Class Reunion Massacre. I don't know which title I prefer, but one thing I can say about this movie is that I've heard some fairly positive things from certain people. I have to say, overall, I don't know if I like the movie, but I don't know if I really dislike the movie either. Some people have called this an underrated slasher film. I think it's about properly rated, but underseen maybe. I do think this is a movie you should see if you like slasher movies. It's 1978, same year as Halloween. This is a premium time for, just slashers in general. Early stuff, and this is something that would definitely influence other slasher films in the future. There's plenty of class reunion type slasher movies. This is kind of one of the first ones, and if nothing else, that's interesting. So the story centers around these 7 people. They're coming to, or 6 or 7 people, I can't remember exactly how many. They're coming to this, their old high school. They're supposed to be coming to a reunion. All these people have, according to the movie, led terrible lives up to this point. That might be a prejudicial view of the movie. It might not be. The whole perspective of the movie is kind of tough to discern. But all these people are coming back to high school for a reunion. There's food there. There's an old janitor there who may or may not actually be the janitor. I'm going to side with may not. But the whole thing is really weird. It's not a great movie by any standing. They find out that they're going to be stalked by a killer, and the killer dresses up in various costumes, which is something that would make its way, of course, into the more well-known Terror Train of 1980, the killer changing costumes. This happens in a few other slasher films, but most notably in Terror Train. This movie kind of starts that somewhat trend. To say anything of the technical aspects, I mean, it's, I guess, well-directed. It almost looks like it's shot on video. It's definitely a very low-res, grainy copy of the movie that they have on Amazon Prime. It's for free on Amazon, by the way, if you want to go watch it. It's okay. As far as just editing and all this different stuff, I kind of think that the movie is not very well structured. I think that's a fault of the script as well as the direction. Cinematography is as good as it can get, I guess, for a movie of this budget, and the editing is okay. As for the acting, I can't really say anybody was bad per se, but I can't really say anybody stands out. The killer himself is kind of interesting. He stands out. He's obviously a very twisted religious person. As a religious person myself, or a person who believes in spiritual things, I can say wholeheartedly that this guy is a whack job and not representative of most of the spiritual community. I would say especially evangelical Christians, which the movie is either upholding or criticizing. It's not really clear. He's not a good representation of those people, but he is maybe a good representation of a twisted version of that. It's really hard to see whether or not the movie is criticizing organized religion or if it's criticizing the people that this guy is murdering. Obviously, the murder scenes are fairly brutal, violent, and there's a particular scene that really stands out to me. There's a character named Cindy who gets drowned to death in a bathroom sink. And despite the fact that a lot of the other murders, even though they're brutal and pretty violent and kind of scary, this one particularly stands out as realistic. The killer is dressed up in a clown costume. He's in this bathroom with this woman, and he's drowning her to death. In some shots, it looks somewhat sexualized to him. In some shots, it looks as if it's a twisted version of a baptism. In other shots, it looks like he's really going after this whole murder thing. I mean, he's absolutely brutal. That's maybe the best scene in the movie just because of how disturbing it is. The final shot of that particular scene/sequence is of the killer holding Cindy's body and then stroking back her hair and her face, stroking her chest and her arm and her hands, as if this is all for her good, and then very carefully dragging her across the floor and propping her against the door after that. Really, really an impactful scene, and I think it gets you into the mind of this particular serial killer. It feels more like a serial killer murder than it feels like a slasher murder. Most of the other deaths in here are fairly ridiculous. I mean, there's a couple of gunshot deaths that are more realistic, but they're not really scary per se. There are a lot of deaths here that are absolutely wacky and contrived, like this one guy gets stabbed in the head from a falling knife that's somehow controlled by a puppet. There's a supernatural aspect to most of these killings. There's a supernatural aspect to the killer in some ways. The movie's really hard to decipher as far as a point of view, so I don't know if that makes the writing good or bad. I'm going to err on the side of mostly bad, but there's some interesting aspects to the script in the movie in general. I think this is a movie that I may rewatch at some point, may reevaluate. Might not do a review of it, but maybe I'll mention it in the future. It's not a great movie. It's not, I would say, an underrated classic. It's maybe underseen is the best way I can put it. It's an okay movie with some interesting aspects to it. There's sort of an art house feel about it in some ways, and definitely a drive-in exploitation feel to it. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie that I don't know if the 84-minute running time can really encapsulate. And I don't know, I mean, some people might say that this would be good with a bigger budget remake. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't know. It seems like it should be made in a different way, or at least take some of the concepts and apply them in a different way. Out of the class reunion movies, though, slasher movies, I gotta say the class reunion slasher movies to come after, I think, don't do as good a job as this one. I like this one a little bit better than, say, Slaughter High and stuff like that. I'd have to see like Student Bodies and a couple of other ones that I think have that kind of point of view. But in general, not a great movie, not a really terrible movie either. I say maybe give it a watch. I don't know what better title to call it, but the one that I'm going to use here is The Redeemer, Son of Satan. Really weird movie. I can't say it's bad, but I can't say it's good. So I'm kind of droning on now, so I'm going to go on and get along to what my next review is going to be. What I've been doing is I've been giving myself two choices. I'll randomize the list, and then if I'm not too keen on the first one, I'll randomize it again, and then I have to pick between the first and second. I'm going to go ahead and pick this second one that popped up, which is actually a sequel, but it's a sequel that's kind of fun. My buddy John Grande really likes this movie out of this particular sleazy slasher trilogy. It's also maybe the least sleazy in the whole trilogy. And, of course, I'm not going to like the nudity in there. That's not going to be a positive. But there's a lot of fun, positive stuff in this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know it's Slumber Party Massacre Part 2. So, yeah, I could do a review of the first Slumber Party Massacre, but I may have already done that a while back. I'm not absolutely certain. But I know I haven't reviewed Part 2. Maybe I'll go back and review Part 1. Maybe I'll go and review Part 3 at some point. But this is number 2 that I'm going to be doing next. And I've got it in this DVD set, which is pretty cool. I don't really want to own the Blu-ray of these, to be perfectly honest. But, yeah, Slumber Party Massacre 2. With the Driller Killer here, the guy that's got a gigantic drill and he looks like a rock star and all this different stuff. Weird movie, crazy movie. Kind of looking forward to rewatching it, to be perfectly honest. So, Slumber Party Massacre 2, that's what's coming up, ladies and gents. Thank you for watching. I'm going to down this coffee as you watch. Whew. Sweet, sweet caffeine. Rock on, guys. If you like, subscribe. I'll talk to you later. See you later with a review of this movie either today or tomorrow. Bye-bye.